How you doing? Today we're talking about Minecraft. Specifically, this potential lawsuit by YouTuber Kian Brose.
Kian Brose.
Mr. Brose is a Swedish man with a British hairline. I'm very sorry for that. It's okay. I understand. Who recreated an old gun server that shut down. It was set to launch on the 2nd of June 2023. However, one day after announcing the release date, another server, Grand Theft Minecraft, was sent an email from Mojang Enforcement, informing them that guns and firearms are now non-compliant with the terms of service, and as such must be removed, else the server would be blocked. This sent Minecraft's community of gun servers into a frenzy, as this basically made their entire genre illegal. After a panicked back and forth, Mojang eventually went back on their decision, declaring that semi-realistic, pixelated weapons were permitted, the type found in most of these servers. Frustrated by this debacle, Kian decided to attempt legal action against Mojang in Sweden, alleging that them reinterpreting the EULA on the fly, as well as hiding information from the public, was in violation of European contract and consumer protection law. He also identified other potentially illegal practices, such as the anti-competitive way their marketplace operates, or by permitting underage gambling on private servers. After failing to gain support for the lawsuit through the Swedish government, he decided to crowdfund it, which ended up raising over $147,000 This video is going to be a bit different to my last two. I don't think Kian is some bad faith actor, I think he has good intentions, and as such, I'm going to be a lot nicer this time. While I wish him well, I'm really not sure he can or should win on most of these issues. I'm not trying to overstep my bounds as someone who is not a lawyer, but while I do have good reasons why he wouldn't win, even if I am wrong from a legal perspective, enacting the policies he is demanding would be incredibly destructive, not only to Minecraft, but to any online service. Future Mate here. Most of what you're about to see was written before Kian posted his follow-up video after getting legal representation. While I will get to his new video at the end, I feel it would be kind of unfair to be this critical without clarifying this. Kian has now pivoted the focus of the lawsuit to a new issue, the forced migration of Mojang accounts to Microsoft accounts. I do actually agree with him on this one, and I genuinely hope he wins. So, if you have been affected by this, do not let this video discourage you from signing up as a participant. With that out of the way, let's continue. So let's go through what the Grand Theft Minecraft server was sent by Mojang.
Because only one day after posting the release date, a tweet was posted stating that Mojang Enforcement threatened to take down a server called GTM because a new directive from Mojang leadership had determined that guns and weapons are considered non-compliant features under the adult content requirement for commercial usage servers, and that they now have to be completely removed because they're against the brand guidelines, usage guidelines, and end-user license agreement. A group with all of these owners was created to discuss and potentially negotiate, asking very valid questions such as, how come servers that have had firearms for well over a decade so far have never had any issues but are suddenly prohibited? Why is it okay for Mojang's own marketplace, where they get a cut of every sale, to have guns when we don't get to have them? And what exactly do they mean by guns and weapons and suitable for children? To which Mojang, after conveniently ignoring half these points, replied that this recent directive from Mojang leadership wasn't for guns and weapons but was purely for guns and firearms. Isn't that change convenient?
So firstly, yes, they did say guns and weapons initially, but this was clearly a typo. They say guns and firearms twice in the same email. Secondly, it's not true that they ignored half of these points. Here is the letter that GTM sent to Mojang, and here is their response. They asked why weapons are banned while they exist in the game. They clarified this was for guns and firearms, but weapons in general are okay. They then asked why there are guns sold in the marketplace that are allowed, as well as guns in other games targeted at children, like Fortnite. Mojang explains that they are only concerned about quote-unquote real-life guns, while fake guns such as blasters are okay. They then asked why other larger servers like Hypixel and Mineplex had been allowed to have guns, but they were being targeted. Mojang explained that they will be enforcing on these servers as they get more complaints. They then asked if adding orange tips to the end would be okay, and, to be fair, the enforcement team's response is a little unclear. Thank you for informing us of the changes that have taken place on your server. I guess they misunderstood what they were asking, but I can infer from this that the answer is yes, adding orange tips is acceptable. They just also gave them a heads up that the names need to be changed as well. So to be honest, and I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with this, but I think all of this is fairly reasonable. Sorry, but Minecraft is a kid's game, and there is a general expectation that vanilla servers, which are part of the quote-unquote official experience, will be kid-friendly as well. And yes, there are murky grey areas like this, but look, for a platform like Minecraft to function properly, the party that has to have final say on these matters is the platform owner. Plus, this is an incredible amount of communication for a moderation team. On social media platforms, you get banned, you get an automated email, maybe with the post that was at fault, you appeal the decision and they just say, yeah, you're good, or nah, you're still banned because reasons. Mojang have actual humans who are working with server owners, answering all their questions to make sure they have the easiest experience becoming compliant. Look, it's difficult to defend practices like this without being accused of glazing a corporation. But you have to remember that Mojang isn't some abstract entity. There are actual people who both make and enforce these policies. And look, many people who work at Mojang would do this not because they love power or screwing over server owners, but because they themselves have kids who play the game, and they genuinely care about making the community as accepting as possible for people of all ages. Back on track, if this change really did ban gun servers altogether, I would have a different position. That does seem like a pretty major overstep, but all they have to do is rename and retexture the guns and they're good to go. Not only that, but GTM have a workaround. They just made the original textures available through a resource pack.
They officially partnered with Nerf, the gun company, even though these guidelines say that gun-like toys are forbidden. Fucking hypocrite.
Instead of real-world guns, use fantasy, sci-fi, or other original projectile weapon designs that vary greatly from real guns. Now to be fair, Kian does say that he's okay with Minecraft setting their own rules, as long as they put it in the EULA. But honestly, I don't think they should. I want you to imagine what it would be like moderating a platform where every single edge case and loophole had to be laid out exactly in the TOS. There's a reason things like anti-cheat services or Google's CAPTCHA are tightly held secrets that users are not given the specifics for. Because if you are given an exact rulebook for what will get you banned, you are also told exactly how to find loopholes to break those rules. Seriously, if this happened, bad faith actors would read the EULA, figure out a loophole that gets around these rules, then moderators would not be allowed to ban them until they notify everyone of a change to the TOS. It would be a game of whack-a-mole covering every single edge case till the end of time, with the EULA getting longer and longer. Imagine going from the clean and easy to understand EULA that Mojang currently have to an incomprehensible wall of text that covers every single bizarre scenario you can think of. If you are concerned about, say, another large children's game having a systemic problem with adult content being exposed to minors, you need the platform to have these powers to properly deal with that. I'll get to the legal stuff later, but Kian also wants to invoke the principle of contra pro forentum.
On top of things like the contra pro forentum doctrine, which basically says that if something is loosely worded, I'm the one that gets to choose how to interpret it.
And this would make what I just described so much worse. Oh, so I'll get banned for racism? Well, me replying to a black person with crime statistics is not racist. All I'm doing is stating facts. That's how I've decided to interpret the rules. This is all why, instead of dealing with that, Mojang just lists broadly what the rules are, make it clear that they have discretion and final say, then they enforce these rules on a case-by-case basis, while working with server owners to make sure they are compliant. But we're not done with the gun case, as there were some new developments. Mojang deferred the issue and got back to them later.
They eventually said on June 13th that the key decision makers are on holidays. So I guess we'll just have to wait until these key decision makers stop being on vacation. But hey, it's not like it's gonna take months. 6 months is how long it took them to reply.
6 months? Pfft, that's like the legal minimum in Europe. Don't know why he was complaining about the US. If Mojang was an American company, there wouldn't be any of this "we're not working right now" garbage. They would have 10 minimum wage workers on his case 24/7. But in all seriousness, while 6 months is a pretty excessive amount of time, Mojang didn't enforce the new directive, so that's 6 extra months they have been untouched by the enforcement team. And I'd want them to take their time so they can come back with the best guidance possible. And luckily, their response was deciding that actually, guns are allowed as long as they're pixelated. So, even though they were in their rights to make this change, they didn't do it anyway. Plus, we can gain some insight into why this happened. The email mentioned the ESRB guidelines, so it's possible that they only did this because they thought it would be necessary to keep their E10 Plus rating. And GTM said in their forum posts that they spoke to some other people at Mojang who said that this directive didn't exist. So probably what happened is there was a misunderstanding by one or multiple members of the enforcement team, which led them to believe that semi-realistic guns were banned. But this was eventually resolved, so everyone gets to keep their guns.
We were essentially told that even though the decision is not final, guns are okay for now, which is a different way of saying, but we will be changing our minds later. We just can't afford any more bad press right now because this entire thing has hit the news and got millions of people to be mad at us for being assholes.
I think he's being unfair here. GTM were frustrated that Mojang were reinterpreting the EULA on a whim, so they are being warned that Mojang still reserve this right, but that doesn't mean they're going to use it. Plus, when are they supposed to be changing their minds? It's been a full year between that email and him releasing this video, and the gun servers were still up then. It's now been... Oh god, this video is taking me so long. I'm so sorry. I don't really have an excuse, I've just been very lazy. Quite a lot longer? And have the servers been taken down? Yeah, no, all good.
But then, while we were waiting 6 months for the key figures to stop being on vacation, on the 2nd of August 2023, Mojang did the worst thing they've ever done. They updated the EULA that had been unchanged since 2020 and tried to hide the fact that they had changed it by not telling anyone about it and releasing it at the same time as a major game update.
Ah, the 2023 EULA update. This is where everyone lost their minds when Mojang updated the TOS, and it was not only a complete nothing burger, but actually part of one of the coolest things that Mojang do. Now, I could cover this in detail, but instead I will direct you to this excellent video by American attorney Moonchannel. Seriously, it's an hour long, but it's worth it. He was also a really big help in me understanding the legal aspect of EULAs. Obviously, I will not be going through the whole video, but I'll be summarizing the key points, and touch on some things that he didn't mention. I think the most useful way to explain this is by going through the Reddit post by Kian himself. EULA updated after 3 years. It's officially 1984. Using Minecraft as a significant part of a creative work, such as a YouTube video, is no longer allowed. He's taking these examples out of context. It's pretty clear what they mean by primary or dominant title when you look at the examples that are permissible as well. Kotoba miners, a Minecraft server for redstone builds? Allowed. Minecraft, the ultimate Kotoba server for redstone? Not allowed. Using Minecraft in the title at all is fine, you just can't imply that Minecraft is the name of your product. That's trademark infringement. Any server is considered commercial even if it does not make money. This is pretty mundane. It's just the definition they use to make it clear what uses they are referring to in the usage guidelines. You provide information to all users on the content and pricing applicable to your server before a person joins, signs up, or signs in. Is this not a really good thing? I want Mojang to force servers into being transparent with their players if they're going to sell them something. Fictional story writers are not allowed to include Minecraft brands or assets for Minecraft-related works. Okay, this one really annoys me. They are talking about using Minecraft's assets in the front and back covers of your book. It's because A, you're profiting off of their assets, and B, it might confuse a potential buyer into thinking it's an official Mojang publication. But it is genuinely incredible that Mojang have such lax usage guidelines that they just let you write, publish, and profit from books about their IP without ever needing to give them permission or pay them a penny in royalties. The Minecraft EULA is seriously, unprecedentedly generous. You might remember when Blizzard made developers sign away their rights to mods made for Warcraft 3 Reforged. Mojang, on the other hand, make it clear that any content, including mods, belongs to you. The EULA is clear, concise, and simple enough that a child could understand it. In fact, it's so legible that even YouTubers, who have no idea what they are talking about, know what it says. Plus, most of the complaints people have about the changes aren't even new. They were just rewritten in a way that makes them much clearer than before. And yeah, to be fair,
all permissions and consents may be revoked at any time if we think that it is appropriate to do so or we don't like what you are doing.
But I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. This was always the case. Mojang have a legal right to enforce their copyrights and trademarks however they wish. They don't need a TOS to grant them that. Within, of course, the bounds of applicable laws, which is why they do state that in the EULA as well. Okay, but if the law just grants them the right to apply discretion however they want by default, what's the point in having a EULA in the first place? Well,
Well, imagine you are playing Minecraft and you build this cute little house in your multiplayer server. After a long day in the mines, you come back and the house has a squatter. Someone else has moved in and put up a sign. You bring this to the attention of the admin, but the rules of the server are clear. If your house doesn't have your name on it somewhere, there's no way to prove that the house belongs to you. You then have no choice but to watch as the house gets turned into something it wasn't intended to be.
When intellectual property law is so complicated, it is incredibly important that they draw a line in the sand ahead of time to avoid losing control of their property to people trying to take advantage of them. This goes back to what I said before about moderation. It is also important that they have final say on how they enforce their IP rights, so they can deal with any edge cases. There is also another, more obvious reason why this exists. It's a useful resource for us, as players and content creators, to know what Mojang are and aren't okay with us doing. Most of Kian's complaints are not about the EULA itself, but the usage guidelines. Keyword, guidelines. This document just tells us generally how they enforce their intellectual property rights, so that we can know if there's a potential we'd get in trouble.
Now, to say that this blew up in their face would be a little bit of an understatement. It got so bad that
a handful of creators were reached out to by Mojang and given a heads up. Attached were answers and guidance to clear up the confusion.
That's right. Select figures were grouped up by Mojang and given information that wasn't publicly available to try and calm it down a bit. Information that should be present in the contract by law. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, they forced every single one of these members to sign a non-disclosure agreement that forbids them from giving out any information that they were told for a contract that should be publicly available.
This isn't entirely accurate. They were allowed to share the information. That was the whole point of it. It was effectively a press conference. But they had to paraphrase. They just couldn't relay what they were told word for word.
While I'd love to share everything that was said, we were told that we were not allowed to share pictures or any messages word for word.
Why would they choose to do it this way? I couldn't tell you. Maybe they were worried about being held to their statements too explicitly? I don't know. Point is, they were not trying to hide information from the public. Sharing this information was the whole point. I do want to touch on Ant Venom's video though, because it is a good way to explain the misplaced outrage over these changes.
They say that they're fine with uploading videos to websites like YouTube and making money by allowing advertising around the video, but they're not cool with creating a video and putting it on services like iTunes or Amazon Prime Video and charging viewers to watch it. The two scenarios they give do not answer the question on whether or not putting videos behind a paywall such as YouTube memberships, Patreon only, Twitch VODs requiring subscription, or anything else is okay, but it certainly doesn't sound like it anymore. But what Mojang told us in the attachment they gave us was, these routes of monetization are okay.
So yes, this is not in the usage guidelines, and technically it prohibits it. But if you read it in context and apply some common sense, you can understand the value judgment they are trying to make. Videos made by YouTubers and independent creators who make free videos, but might supplement their income by putting a couple of exclusive videos on Patreon. That's okay. A professional piece of media that gets published on services like iTunes or Amazon Prime? Not so much. It's clear the reason this rule is here, so they can prevent a massive studio from trying to get away with saying, oh yeah, I make Minecraft videos. Minecraft the TV show Season 1, Amazon Prime exclusive.
But if that's the case, why not express that properly in the mug? Wouldn't that cause way less confusion?
Sure, they could put every single edge case they can possibly think of into the guidelines, but then instead of the short, clear, and concise document we have now, you'd have a 100,000-page legal contract that would be so hard to follow, no one would read it anyway, thus rendering it pointless. Once again, the usage guidelines is not some binding agreement. It's just a reference for generally what you are and aren't allowed to do. As they say in the guidelines, they're pretty lenient. So as long as you're acting in good faith, not being malicious, and worst case, you are cooperative if for whatever reason they do have a problem, you're going to be fine. You may still have a problem with Mojang having complete control over how you can use Minecraft, but I'll say it again, every single company already has this power by default, just Mojang are the ones being honest about it. I want to end this section by playing something from Moon Channel's video.
And its handling of the franchise should be respected and not harangued. If this is how we treat those trying to do good for us, we are merely inviting the opposite. I can't think of another IP that has such a lenient, generous EULA attached to it. We Minecraft players are deeply spoiled by the amount of freedom we have to create and utilize different aspects of Minecraft. In being spoiled, however, I fear that we have also become privileged. The complaints I've seen surrounding the new Minecraft EULA are wholly without merit. The EULA is almost exactly the same as it used to be, and if anything does happen enforcement-wise, it's not likely to be because of any substantial change in the end-user license agreement or usage guidelines. So, is Minecraft's new EULA 1984? Is it Brave New World? Is it Fahrenheit 451 with a Handmaid's Tale for dessert? No. It turns out, the new EULA is just business as usual.
Amen. Alright, cool. Now we can get to if Kian actually has a case. Should probably note that I am not a lawyer. But look, I do have a lot of good reasons why I don't think he has a case. And it's not like Kian is a lawyer either. And as always, all my sources are in the description, you can check that if you don't trust me. He cites an EU website explaining your obligations when contracting with consumers. Keyword, consumers.
And by looking just a little bit in Europe's website, you can see that contracts must be fair, transparent, and cannot have unfair terms.
I don't think these rules apply in this case, as server owners aren't really consumers. Don't believe me? Kian complained to the National Board for Consumer Disputes and said this.
That said that apparently, when I entered this agreement with Mojang when I was 12 years old, I did not do so acting as a consumer, meaning that I must have been a really young 12-year-old corporate entity to enter this contract with Mojang at 12 years old.
But he's misinterpreting their response. His complaints related to his rights as a server owner, which is not a consumer, and so outside of their scope of authority. But look, let's assume server owners do count as consumers. There are still some issues with how he's interpreting these rules. If you read the page, they say that these are examples of potentially unfair terms that may be judged unfair. A judge is going to apply reasonable discretion based on the specifics of the case. And I doubt they would rule that Mojang is not allowed discretion for how they moderate their platform. He said that he contacted European legal advisors who confirmed that what Mojang has been doing does not fly. Now, Kian has deleted all the links he shared in this document, so I don't have proof anymore, but you'll have to believe me when I say, no, they did not. The EU's response was just the same boilerplate advice without any specific ruling on Mojang. And even then, these rules have kind of been superseded by the Digital Services Act, a regulatory framework that defines the rules for how online services should be managed. Here is what they have to say about terms of service. Providers of intermediary services shall include information on any restrictions that they impose in their terms and conditions. That information shall include information on any policies, procedures for the purpose of content moderation, as well as the rules of procedure of their internal complaint handling system. This information is spread across the Minecraft EULA and the Microsoft Services Agreement. It shall be set out in clear, plain, intelligible, user-friendly, and unambiguous language. Where a service is directed at minors, the provider of that intermediary service shall explain the conditions in a way that minors can understand. As we've been through, Mojang absolutely knocked this out of the park. Providers of intermediary services shall act in a diligent, objective, and proportionate manner in applying and enforcing the restrictions. I know some people might disagree, but from their handling of the gun server debacle, yeah, I think this applies as well. And look, the rules are very unspecific and up to interpretation, but a reasonable judge is not going to rule in a way that removes Mojang's moderation discretion. Ultimately, Minecraft is the best-selling game in the world, owned by the world's largest company. The EU is going through and making sure every major company is compliant with the DSA. I'm sorry, they don't need a crowd-funded Swedish class action lawsuit to help with that. This is what the Swedish Consumer Agency told Kian.
To which they replied that representation in this case cannot be expected to lead to an outcome that is of importance to law enforcement. In other words, they don't give a shit.
No, that does not mean they don't give a shit. It means exactly what they told you. It means the information you gave them would not win a case. He calculated the funding goal based on the assumption that the case would only take 1 year, because of the overwhelming amount of evidence against Mojang and clear violations that make it a really clear-cut case. And as we've established, this is far from clear-cut. You know what was a clear-cut case? When the Kleins were sued by Matt Hoss. And that took longer than a year and far more than $80,000. Okay, but that's not the only complaint he has.
In the end user license agreement, they specifically state twice that any form of gambling content is strictly forbidden, which totally makes sense. But what if I told you that the gambling part was a lie? They have something called crates and crate keys. These keys are used to play lotteries inside of the game that have a chance to give you extremely overpowered items or more money than anyone else. Theoretically speaking, under Mojang's own rules, this should be completely forbidden as it's clearly gambling even by Sweden's own definitions of gambling.
Look, should loot boxes be considered some form of gambling? Yeah, probably. Is it legally considered gambling? No. Under almost all jurisdictions, including Sweden, the prize needs to have monetary value. And in-game items do not have monetary value. He claims in the Google Doc that the gambling that takes place on these servers matches the definitions on the Swedish Gambling Authority's website. Here's the English version of the website. Here's a translation of the law, and it clearly states that the prize must have monetary value. He emailed them about this, giving them the example of skins betting. And lo and behold, guess what they told him? The Gambling Act regulates gambling for money and other winnings with a monetary value. A license is required for all gambling for money and other winnings with a monetary value. Gambling for money or goods against payment. Skins are virtual items from computer games that can be resold on various platforms for money. Mojang prohibits servers from allowing you to sell in-game items.
I'm very sure. Okay, let's say that. Let's say winning money. I'm sure if you win these items, those items probably are something valuable that someone else will want. Therefore, you could probably sell your account for money because it has those items, right? So you are doing it. It is money. It is money.
Okay. If you're going to be really stubborn, Mojang also prohibits people from selling their accounts.
And trust me, there's so much more, like how they're currently forcing developers onto their own marketplace so they can charge extremely exorbitant fees for no reason while blocking off any kind of competition. As if that doesn't sound like some company that has recently been hit by billions in fines from Europe.
Now look, I really don't think this practice is anti-competitive. There are plenty of game engines and modding SDKs that operate in a similar way, by providing the tools for free, then effectively charging for the service by taking a cut of the revenue. For this to violate antitrust laws, there would have to be evidence that they are abusing their market share to unfairly cut out competition. But there are some other issues with this argument. It's hard to justify that they are quote-unquote forcing developers onto their own platform when it's not even open for applications right now. He does provide some more information in the Google Doc as to why he thinks they are trying to quote-unquote block off competition. Okay, this next bit might get a bit technical, so bear with me. There's two versions of Minecraft, Java Edition, which is written in the programming language Java, and Bedrock Edition, which is written in C++. As Kian explains, Mojang used to issue the PDB files for Bedrock Edition, which basically gives you a lot of useful information about an application written in C++, making it much easier to mod. Mojang removed these files, citing security issues, but they did not remove the Java Edition equivalent, obfuscation maps. Kian says that the reason is so that Mojang can force people onto their own marketplace, which exclusively uses their proprietary add-on API that is much more limited than using PDBs. Two problems with this. Firstly, what has this got to do with the marketplace? You can publish mods using the add-on API on any website. It's not exclusive to the Minecraft marketplace, something that Kian himself admits. How is this anti-competitive? Secondly, I do kinda buy that there are security issues with PDBs that aren't present in obfuscation maps. This is a kind of complex topic, but basically, Java and C++ work in fairly fundamentally different ways. Because of how C++ manages memory, it can be a lot easier to introduce security vulnerabilities than in Java. In general, giving away too much debugging information can make it a lot easier to find exploits and also make things like cheats. Not to mention that PDBs give a lot more information to developers than obfuscation maps. He also said that Mojang lied about not having exclusivity contracts with developers. He spoke to some people under NDA who confirmed that this wasn't true. I do have some trouble believing this though. Firstly, if it was true, I feel like we would have heard about this. Secondly, this doesn't really make much sense. Why would a developer want to charge money on the marketplace, then release it for free on another website? The point of putting your work on the marketplace is so you can make money from it. And yeah, I understand that some creators like to make work available for free, then have a paid option for people who want to support them. However, Mojang already let you do this. You can't charge for access to your mod, but you can make money off of voluntary donations. Alright, that's enough Mojang glazing for now. Let's go through some things they have done wrong. Since recording this video, once again, I'm so sorry. It should not have taken me this long. Kian has released a follow-up, and to my genuine surprise, he's managed to find a lawyer. I've seen some people express skepticism over the legitimacy of this lawyer, but as far as I can tell, both he and his partner do have quite a lot of legal experience, especially in the relevant subject matter, unlike some other lawyers I could mention. More importantly, Kian has shifted the focus of the lawsuit to a new issue, the migration of Mojang accounts to Microsoft accounts.
Mojang would announce that we've decided that moving forward, all of our games will require a Microsoft account to play. And if you didn't want to migrate your account, you won't be able to log in anymore, which means you won't be able to play either. In other words, either migrate your account and give Microsoft all of your data, or they take away what you paid for.
And yeah, he does have a point. While I don't have a problem with Microsoft consolidating all their services into a single account, there is no excuse for depriving people of their purchase just because they didn't play the game during the migration period. Another thing that I haven't touched on yet, Mojang are not great at informing users of changes to the TOS.
And tried to hide the fact that they had changed it by not telling anyone about it and releasing it at the same time as a major game update.
This is a violation of the DSA, and as far as I can tell, yeah, Mojang have basically never brought up changes anywhere other than their blog. But legally, would he win this suit? I have no idea, but it's worth a try. So cool, if you're eligible, you can sign up to be a participant, and if you missed every single notice over 3 years, lost your account, you might be able to get your, $15 back. Cool, so thanks for watching. If you're new here, I'm not sure how much the Minecraft community would be interested in Aussie whistleblowers or the Ukraine war. I don't know, go watch my Darman Vineboom videos. I know a lot of you youngsters like those. Alright, see ya.